What up, what up, what up, what up, world? What up, everybody? Welcome to another fantastic Fanatic Sports Podcast, episode number 22. You probably wondering where episode number 21 is and who it was. That was the great conversation I had with my good friend Rod Earls, which we taped, and I probably forgot to post. Whatever, not important. Got another exciting episode today. Another outstanding conversation. We will be doing some content later today, though, and throughout the week. Got a renewed spirit for the broadcasting and the podcasting. It's always fun, but there's a side to this thing that's work. That is, I'd be remiss in lying. I'd be remiss and I'd be lying if I told you it wasn't a lot of it to it, but a lot of work. But it's joyful work. But an exciting podcast, exciting episode today, no less. Shout out to my man Brandon Baker of the 30 Minutes of Hell podcast, which, by the way, I got to start by telling you how excited I am about that podcast title alone. I've gotten to check out a little bit of the pods, but really, I just happened to notice your birthday on Twitter, and I felt old immediately because the day you were born, I was already making poor decisions in life. So, but appreciate you having you on, man. Thank you for the time. I know you normally do 30 minutes, so we can keep it in that area, in that amount of time if you got it. But happy to have you on, man.
Yeah, no, it sounds good, man. Whatever you got for me, I got time today.
Sweet. So, of course, our podcast is the Fanatic Sports Podcast. So I like to start because to me, so one of the cool things about sports is called the fandom story. It's like we love, So I've got a ton of different. I've got 4 different teams that I'm a fan of in the pros, and then in college, it's pretty much just all Arkansas for me. So what I like to start with is tell me one of your favorite teams and how you became a fan of that team.
For sure. Arkansas come by naturally, man. My dad was a fan, and that's just one of the things that I guess we kind of bonded over growing up. He always brought me up to the hill to watch basketball games from when I was like 5-6 years old. So that came easy.
Yeah.
And it's always stuck. It's been hard lately in a lot of sports. It gets hard being a fan, but it's never going away, right? That's born into me.
Yeah, you can't let go. No matter, I'm down. So I'm based down here in Baton Rouge now, and it's even more of like a driving point. So LSU has a way of sneaking by and beating us way more than they probably should, to be honest. But that's what makes the rivalry great, is that it's never when we're supposed to beat them that we beat them. And it's always, very joyous, especially to beat LSU. But being down here, it makes me love Arkansas and the Razorbacks even more. Just because you get so tired of hearing all this go at Tigers and all that all the time. It's trust me.
I can only imagine, man.
You won't be able to let that go.
No, you're going through it down there with that. I can only imagine. I've got a couple friends that are from that area, and I can't watch games with them, man. It's too much.
So Wednesday night we were in. Actually, I was in Fayetteville for a friend of mine's birthday, and so he's got a really cool job, and his job afforded him tickets for quite a few of us, about 4 or 5 of us, to get the opportunity to go to watch the game. And ironically, it was versus LSU, so it was really great to be back in that atmosphere in the stadium. It was really great to be back in Fayetteville. I've been living in Baton Rouge for about 5 years now, or a little under 5 years, and so it was great to be back in in on the home side of the court. As one of the things I found in my travels is that going to a lot of the games, and I will admit one of the cool things about being in this area is I'm really close to a lot of great sports markets, from like Memphis to Dallas. New Orleans is 45 minutes from me. There's a lot of different chances to go see. Even Houston's only like 4 hours away, right? So there's a lot of pro teams surrounding the area. But I go, and even when I go to like Arkansas versus LSU games, I've grown accustomed in the last 5 years to cheering when everyone else is booing, and so it was fun to get to cheer with everyone. So I guess talk a little bit about before we get into your pod and some of the things you've seen as a journalist. Talk a little bit about the fan side of maybe your favorite Razorback story, favorite game you've been to, anything like that.
Sure. Yeah. I kind of understand what you're talking about, because when it comes to pro teams around Arkansas, like there's nobody super close by.
Right.
So both of my pro teams, I like the Clippers out west, and then
no
Packers fan.
You're a Clippers fan.
I'm a Clippers fan, yeah.
Oh,
and so talk about, man, I go to some of their games whenever they come to OKC, when they come to Dallas and stuff, and I'm always on the wrong side of that crowd. So.
Oh my God! Listen, so my normal co-host, his name's Anthony. We call him the Angry Puerto Rican, and he's a Knicks fan. He's from New York, so naturally he's angry all the time. But he really hates the Clippers because I am a rabid Clippers fan. I've been obnoxious about the Clippers for the last 5 years. It's been we've been and we'll get into that here in a little bit, man.
We come back to it. Yeah.
It's because it's frustrating, but it's like it's one of those things. So I'm a Royals fan in baseball, and you lose a lot, but when you get that nice season, and especially with the Royals, we had a World Series visit that was a loss, and then it was followed by a World Series visit that was a win. That's so refreshing. And again, that those sorts of fandoms, and those rewards as a fan is kind of what built the basis around this podcast, is the fact that, man, you get in the trenches with that team, and with the Clippers, I expected so much more, and we have definitely underachieved. And I've taken some heat with some of the folks that come on and chat with me on a regular about it. But I am happy. Today look, if we don't do anything else good today, we're locked in here, man, because it's not a lot of us. It's me, you, and I think Billy Crystal at this point. That's all that's left of the Clippers fans. but
that's far, man. Yeah, I hear you.
That's awesome. I actually went and saw the Clippers in Memphis. Tell me your favorite game you've seen so far, though.
With the Clippers, it was one of the first NBA games I ever went to was watching when let's see, I think when Russ and KD were still in Oklahoma City.
Oh, wow.
And watched when Lob City came through, and it was one of the first real pro games I got to go to like that, and that was a lot of fun,
Yeah, very psyched about
talking about Razorback stuff, man. Like any big game that you go to in Bud Walton, it's like it's like spiritual in that arena. Whenever it means a lot to you, and you're really in on Arkansas like that,
That's
being there. I was there for unfortunately I missed when we beat Auburn a couple years ago, but I was there. Okay. When we beat Kentucky in that same season, and then when we beat Duke last season, a couple of those big games like that, it's just you just don't beat it with how passionate everyone is around you. And that it's a palace, right? It's a palace.
It really is. It really is. And so it was really cool. So I grew up in Little Rock, and so the guy who was turning 40.
Right now too.
Yeah, that's great. Love it was so I flew into Little Rock from New Orleans to Little Rock. And so really great just sports day of flying. I flew on Super Bowl Sunday. While I was in the airport, I got to and I didn't want to bother them. I don't know if you've had this same feeling. And I've always got a script, just so you know, Brennan, and I'll have you on plenty more. You'll see it. But I'm bad about going off topic, but I was just thinking about it. So I'm in the airport. I actually fist bump Mark Ingram, Saints legend. And I'm a Steelers fan, so I don't have a dog in the fight for the Super Bowl. But I also saw George Kittle, tight end, second best tight end in the league. And so tell me if you've kind of felt this or done this. So I saw them, and I think to myself, man, I need to go take a picture with these guys. And I've got a marketing brain, so I think about things that way. And it's just like, dude, I need to go. This would be awesome for the pod, just to have, for the Instagram, just to be able to like take a picture with them. But then like the fan side of me got kind of sad. Like, well, George sits down, he's there with his wife, and he's having fun. Just like not, I could tell he was like not in the mood to be bothered. But I just felt like, man, I should have, and I didn't. I wimped out and I didn't take a picture with them, and I really kind of wish I would have. Have you ever met like a player or anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen Bobby Portis around Little Rock a few times and had that exact same thought of I should go talk to him, and probably should have, but it's always like I don't have a lot of time. He's probably busy. Like I know he doesn't really care to be bothered. So yeah, no, I definitely felt that.
I was I had worked up the courage for Kittle. So I see Ingram, and I'm a big guy. I played offensive tackle. So he probably thought I was somebody from one of his practice squad days or something. And so he sees me. We give the nod. I give him a fist bump. And I was like, who is that? Oh, God, that's Mark Ingram. And I was like, dude, I should go take a picture with him. And so I called my buddy immediately. And I was just like, dude, I just saw Mark Ingram. I should go. And so I'm thinking about this. And so then right after, I forget, poof, it's the Super Bowl. They had the awards the night before. And so that's probably why Kittle was there, I would imagine. And so I see Kittle, and he sits down, and I'm like, all right, boom. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it. I'm going, and like I work up this courage to go do it. You would have thought I was gonna go ask him out on a date the way I was nervous about it, right? And so as I finally get up the courage to walk across the seats or whatever and go speak to him. And funny enough, nobody else was bothering him either, right? Not walking with a security guard. Just I don't know if anybody knew that he was Kittle. It was me. I was on the phone with my buddy. There was another girl standing there, and I was like, "That's Kittle," and she goes, "Yeah, that's Kittle." But as soon as I got at the nerve, then they called me to board the plane. I was like, "All right, that's God saying don't." But I guess I don't do well with celebrities. I don't know. We'll see. But the funny part is, like, I don't even think about Arkansas, like the top Arkansas players as celebrities. Bobby Portis, I would have no problem going up and speaking to him. And I wasn't on the yard when he was in school, but I mean, like I've met him a time or two, and he's so down to earth. Like I wouldn't feel uncomfortable about going to say what's up or take a picture with him at all. Like as a matter of fact, after the game, we went and met Ronnie Brewer after he got, I guess it got done coaching or whatever, and finishing up all the coaching job stuff they do. But it didn't even dawn on me that this guy's rich millionaire. That's Ronnie, you know what I mean? But like that's Kittle, like, and he had the man bun going.
It's a little different. It's a little different. Yeah.
I should have took a picture, man. Because now I can tell the story all day, but I don't have the proof of it. I guess I don't know. So, well, look, man, we'll get into it. Let's talk a little bit about how you got to working with as a part of the Field of 68, and how you started working with your podcast, 30 Minutes of Hell.
Sure. Yeah. I think it was 6 years ago now, maybe 5.5 years ago. There's a small website just kind of had posted an ad about needing some writers for college basketball.
Yeah.
And I kind of do my own, like I'm always like a stats guy, right? I work in data analytics in my day job. So I always just kind of keep my own stats as it is. So I kind of thought, what if I just kind of applied this and see if I can just break into writing some articles a little bit and make money doing what I'm already kind of doing for myself.
Sure.
And so I kind of started with a little website called Overtime Heroics. Okay. And then a guy that has his own site here for Arkansas named Evan Demerol had reached out to me to ask if I wanted to write some stuff for his website, bestofarkansassports.com.
Right. Okay.
And so that's when I kind of really started becoming more of like a real journalist and started getting some more experience, being able to interview a few people, getting more previews and recruiting and just kind of getting some stuff set up like that. And then through that, it was Jeff Goodman reached out and asked if I would be interested in being their branch of Arkansas of their Field of 68 podcast network.
That's awesome.
So just kind of started up, just kind of writing on a whim, just trying to see if I could, something that I would enjoy doing. And it's grown into a little following on Twitter and some fun articles. And, I just get to talk sports all the time. So it's been good. It's been fun.
I hear you, man. So look, I'm in kind of that same spot. I actually wanted to write for the what's the name of the Razorback paper on campus, but I guess they went with someone else. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I didn't get the opportunity to write for them. But I've always been a fan. I've always enjoyed just broadcast journalism, sports talk in particular. And man, I can do it all day. And like you said, look, we do this all the time, man. So why not, do it on a higher level? And I actually, I've been, like I said, I've got a market in mind. So I've been in sales for a while. And so getting the opportunity to do sales for sports was really cool when I had that opportunity. And so then my mind kind of fell into ways to build advertising opportunities for different businesses and building off of the platforms that I've been blessed to create. So it's been really cool. I've been broadcasting and podcasting for about 10 years or so. It's 25. Yeah, so about 10 years now. And man, I really enjoy it. And so getting these opportunities to chat with folks like you you've got a great following. So I guess I still got plenty to learn about the social media game, man. But it's really, really cool to get these opportunities. You get to meet people like yourself and have these conversations. And that's what that means more to me than any dollar I could probably ever make off of it. But and in that same vein, man, it's really, really great to have those opportunities to make that extra income, or you can, like I said, it was something I was talking about. So I've got a group of contributors that jump on the pod with me pretty frequently. I do it once a week, and so we talk about we've been talking about expanding, and it kind of, the story I just told you about the guys at the airport kind of gave me some ideas on like things that maybe we can start looking into in the future. Traveling, going places, being on location, and you're in that atmosphere, man. It's kind of hard. You can't recreate the joy that comes from those atmospheres, man. It's a real blast. But speaking of atmosphere, man, so the Razorbacks kind of got a tough road to going forward. The LSU win was good redemption. Especially after the loss down here in Baton Rouge. But then they went to A&M. A&M's a tough opponent. Talk a little bit about what you saw this week from the Hoop Hogs and what your thoughts on where they are on the tournament bubble, and what do they need to do to make it to the big dance?
Yeah. This week, I feel like just the last few weeks, and it was weird timing, right? When Boogie goes down, it kind of felt like there was no hope after that, and everyone just kind of shifted back into a role that maybe they were more comfortable with. Maybe there's just no questioning their roles anymore because there was no other options. But everyone just kind of started clicking a little better when Boogie goes down a couple weeks ago. And I feel like just as a group, they have elevated their defense. Like on the surface, you can see it, but I just feel like they all understand where to be and they're playing off of each other better. And that has led to more coherent, consistent basketball on both sides of the court. And that's led to these wins. And even in a couple losses, it's been close losses to good teams, right? I mean, you come back almost all the way back to Alabama. You hold your own against A&M until the last few minutes. Like, you're playing these top 10 teams toe to toe. But it's the defensive side of the ball that has really kept them in most games, in my opinion. They're still searching for consistency on offense. You've got guys, Big Z, the last few games has just had, a 27-point game, a 25-point game, his, big breakout performances. But without that, they don't really have a lot of other guys that are being high level contributors at a consistent level offensively. And you've got guys scoring, but they're shooting like 25% from the field. Or, Carter Knox will have a huge game where he'll hit 4 or 5 shots, but it comes every couple of games. It's not consistent.
Yeah. I noticed that watching, kind of looking at the stat line. I was of course, being down here, I don't get the opportunity to watch as much as I would like. But Carter kind of carried the weight to start. I thought it was odd going in through the first half that Big Z was so under wraps, and it would seem like they would be trying to find more shots and buckets for him. The one thing that kind of, and I guess I'm just old school this way, one of the things that kind of burns me about Big Z, and I know he's a big European, and those European bigs aren't big on the rebounding, which has plagued us for, it feels like, it doesn't matter who the last coach I remember that rebounded well was, maybe Stan Heath, maybe? I don't know. Are we in a different place where rebounding isn't as necessary, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of other teams, like A&M is a great example, because they are so good at everyone doing the rebounding, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't have that 7-footer that's doing it.
Right.
And our guys aren't doing it as well this year, but you're right. It feels like it's always been a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's scheme. Guys aren't in a good position to rebound. I don't know if that's just you're focused on getting guys in that are offensively talented and maybe they don't have that rebounding chops. I don't know. But other teams do it well, right? I don't understand why it always seems to be a problem.
It's mind blowing. So Wednesday night, Carter Knox had, I think, 9, maybe 10 boards. Big Z finished with, I think, 4. Again, it's hard to argue with. You certainly don't want to take him off the court because he put up 25, I think, against LSU, and it was 27 the night of the game before, and I think he ended with a decent line against A&M, if I'm not mistaken. But just it was a little too late, and like you said, the consistency is almost it's frustrating how bad. He only had 13 against A&M, and they've got some pretty good bigs, as I understand it, that can obviously the way they kind of limited his ability to score. And then even more that like you said, the scoring. Jonell Davis is great. He's a really good scorer, but he's super inefficient. He's a high volume shot taker, and so that concerns me a little bit. I guess my biggest thought is going into the tournament, and honestly, it kind of feels like that's our best bet to get into the dance now is the tournament, but. The conference tournament, I should say. What do we've got like 4 or 5 games left. Let me jump back over
I think
to the schedule.
6 more, 6 total.
Yeah. 6 games, and we almost without winning the tournament, and Lord knows this isn't a fun stretch with there's Auburn, there's Missouri, who's a pretty good team. We got Texas at home. I feel like all of our home games should be good. So even this Mississippi State game to finish the season would be, I feel comfortable about that one. But it's the SEC. There's not an easy walk for any game, especially on the road. And we got, I think, 1, 2, 3. Also 3 and 3. Yeah, 3 and 3 left, which. I would expect this to go no less than 3 and 3 to finish out the season. You got any predictions on these last 6 games? What do you think from a win-loss standpoint?
Well, from what they need, I think 3 wins probably gives them one of the best resumes of the bubble teams. But that leaves a lot in the hands of that selection committee. Like, I do not think that guarantees you anything. It just, because they have wins against Michigan, against Kentucky, against Alabama. You put yourself on the bubble with those high quality wins, it makes it kind of hard to leave you out. But I think they need to get 4 to really solidify like a spot. Like if they want to get off that bubble and get into that last spot, I think they need 4 out of their last 6. I think this game against Auburn, obviously, they're the best team in the country in my eyes. Right. They're impossible, especially on the road right now. But the last 5 games all feel like you can win. But it's just a matter of doing it, right? Out of those 5, 3 are at home. and then you have to find a win. South Carolina still hasn't won a game in the SEC yet. That's on the road. Vanderbilt is a lot better than they usually are, and that's a road game.
Yeah,
I feel like you got to find 4 out of those 5 to get in.
That sounds doable when you say it that way, Brendan. I honestly thought all hope was lost, and I'm leaving it up to the tournament. And the one good thing with the tournament is a lot of times with so much talent at the top of our conference, a lot of those talented teams that are kind of locks for the tournament don't really give it their whole going into the conference tournament. So, that leaves room for like an Arkansas or another bubble team to win the tournament. And I mean, obviously you got to beat some really good teams to get there. But I mean, it just gets tough when you start thinking about, if you're dependent on a conference tournament win to get you in. So, certainly hoping for the best there. Have you been following any of the baseball teams yet?
I try to catch a couple of the games this weekend.
Okay.
I like baseball season because it means that spring is coming more than anything else. I try to keep up with it, but it's fun. But it'll take me probably a month to get in and learn everybody in the lineup and everything.
Yeah, and I think I saw you got a birthday in March. Is that right?
I do.
Okay, yeah, as do I. So my birthday is March 4th, and I think you're a little later in the month if I remember
my birthday is almost always that first weekend of March Madness. So I always try to take off, man. That's the best weekend of the year for me. It's like Christmas.
That's awesome. So and it used to be before our conference expanded. My birthday was always the beginning of like the conference tournament, which was also very, very cool. Now I believe we've got a game. I think we play Vanderbilt on my birthday on the 4th. It's a Tuesday, which actually that's Fat Tuesday. I understand that Mardi Gras will be taking place on that day. But it's super busy down here. I work in hotels, and so there's no off days on Mardi Gras for us. But I'm sure
it's gonna be wild.
it's gonna be quite the day. I'll say that. So I was peeking at the baseball team. I know we swept Washington State, which was very exciting. Actually, we've got. It looks like we've got the team. A lot of people have hailed us as the best team in the country, but how many times have we been the best team in the country? And then it ended with us being, not the champions. Of the country.
That's how it goes. Arkansas baseball every year.
I was, and so then to make matters worse. So, and I've got a few friends down here, and boy, they remind me that the head coach of the baseball team down here came down here in his first year and won a ring. Now they stunk it up last year. I think they made the tournament. They went on like one of those same little runs. So it wasn't like they were like super great all through the year. They just got hot at the right time, which that's a story for life in itself. But they, from what I understand, is that they just got hot at the right time, and then they went through Omaha and won it all in kind of in a dramatic fashion. And then last year they were just as bad, and they were kind of hoping at the opportunity to get hot at the same time that they did last year or the year prior, and it didn't work out. But every year we put pro teams on college fields, man. I figure at some point we're going to kind of get to where it all comes out for us as a win. I would presume in Omaha.
Break through at some point. Yeah, I mean it's nice that there's been so much consistency in the talent that they have compared to a lot of the other sports that you watch. It's hard to follow what they do because it's in every sport. Once you get to the postseason, it's almost impossible, right? One team wins every year.
Yeah, that's it.
It's incredibly difficult to get there. So
that is it. Yeah. So let me ask you this. I toy with this idea constantly because, again, like being down here and not only did they win a national championship in baseball, but they won in basketball, and I think they won in gymnastics as well. Like they put a few rings on the table. Are you good? Would you rather the consistency of Dave Van Horn or would you rather just a coach that's going to come in and give you one ring and then, I don't know, in the up and downs of sports, do you take the ring or are you happier with the consistency you're getting right now from Van Horn?
That's a great question. I feel like ever since Kentucky won their ring with Calipari, he has kind of been in that same boat of he's putting pros in the league, but he's not getting all the way through the big dance.
Yeah.
And I mean, kind of what I was just saying earlier. I feel like you got to give yourself the talent and you got to give yourself the chance. And I think sometimes we put too much weight on not getting all the way to win at all because it's so hard. Like you have to have health. You have to have things break your way. It's about the matchups. I mean, you can't just put together a team and say, okay, all right, we're done. Right? Like you play the games for a reason. So I think having that consistency, you give yourself a chance to make that breakthrough every year. I think that's better. Now, if you're telling me a coach is going to come here for 3 or 4 years and guarantee me that he's going to win a ring one of those years versus a coach that's going to be here for 15 and just be good every year, then I want the ring. But I think giving yourself a chance every year is the best. I think it's a good formula to do that. We just haven't seen it yet in baseball.
Yeah, and you know I dare not bring up the maybe one of the most heartbreaking situations in college sports when Carson Chatty bumped into the first baseman and we dropped that what should have been a championship sweep, as a matter of fact. And I mean that's as close as I've ever been to winning the championship on the national level. And it's heartbreaking, but you know, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. And it as a matter of fact, it feels like part of Razorback fandom, and I think everybody, you know, and I, you know, I joke with you about you being young, but you know, I'm not old. I turned 40 in March, you know, in a few weeks, but you know, I feel like literally at every generation of Razorback, you know, fandom, there everybody's got that one game or maybe probably 3. I can imagine. I can just off the top of my head think of 3 heartbreaking games where it's just like, dang, dude. Like that, we were there. It gets no closer, you know, in a lot of these situations that us Razorback fans have been through. And I think it's almost a rites of passage that, you know, you just you got that bad game. It's just like, man, we're right there. That rings in our hand and we just kind of give it away. But you know, I that's the beauty of it. And you go through it, you go through the throes of. And then when you finally do get that one ring or you get that one success, or sometimes it's just getting over the hump, you know, beating Alabama, if you will. I don't know if you remember the 06 season when we dropped that first game to USC and then went 10-4, I think is what we finished the season with. But just an amazing and there was a terrible ending to the conference championship, but in that season, we beat, I think it was Auburn and Auburn was number 2. Alabama was somewhere in there. I mean, just like, you know, the relief that comes from those types of wins it's what makes being it's the reward that you get for being a good fan. So it's hard not to like that.
I think we felt it a little bit with Muss, right? He got us talk about getting back over that hump. It was 25 years since we got as far as we did in the basketball tournament with him. So but that's, you know, that the baseball play, it'll always be a stain on the last decade or so. But you're right there. You're right there.
I mean, last strike, last out. Then all he's got to do is. Well, so all right. Let me pitch to you. Did you ever play baseball?
Just when I was young, I did not play it through high school.
Okay, so I really struggle with that whole eye on the ball thing. So it didn't work out for me. For, you know, I immediately was carried over to off-season football practice, and they asked me just to stay there. But so like I think about it a lot, right? So it was, and you know, they say it was in Bermuda's Triangle. It was. I remember watching the game like it was literally 10 minutes ago, and you know, the first baseman I don't think was going to have the best view. The right fielder had a long run, and then Shaddy's right there, and he wants to be the hero, which he had just hit the game, what would have been the game winner, you know, the inning prior. But you know, he's got the best angle, but he wasn't able to get there. But do you remember who should have probably taken that ball?
I'm trying to remember his name because I'm not. I think the right fielder was the one.
It was
the outfielder there. I think
I can never. It's the hard hit. The kid that went to Baltimore. He's a hard.
Was it Kirkstad?
He hits the ball a ton. Heston Kjerstad, right?
Yeah. I think it should have been the outfielder there. I think he in the replay route, like you see the picture all the time. They're all three standing right there. I feel like he was close enough that he should have called it off.
Yeah, it's a laugh or cry moment, and I always elect to laugh. But and the wildest part is I think that he had made like a sliding catch out in foul zone, maybe a couple innings prior. But the difference was like the ball had traveled further to where it was a much easier catch for him. This was going to be a heck of a run, and for him to get there to get it.
And so Shaddy was there. Like he got there in time. I think he overran it. I think he got excited and went under the ball and tried to turn around. And it just messed up play.
A classic Razorback moment. That's what that is. That is vintage Arkansas Razorback. Us getting as close as we could get, and then kind of dropping the egg, if you will. But love that, man. That was. But just to be there. And then you get close, and I could go through a number of different moments that are very similar to that. So what else are you working on? Any other projects you got coming up? Whether it's Razorback or anything else?
Right now, getting through this season. Right now, I recently changed day jobs, so I'm trying to just balance out kind of life and sports at the same time. So I'm getting previews out for every game coming up. I'll have some recruiting articles coming out over some of the guys coming in next class. I'm pretty excited about the basketball guys that are coming in next year. I really want to see what Cal does in the portal, see what next year's team looks like. But keep your eye out for that. Yeah, that's my main thing will be recruiting in this summer to see how that team shapes up next year.
Very, very excited to see the players that are coming in. Had a close look at some of those. Like I said, I spent some time talking with Ronnie, and he's kind of in charge of like the recruiting and kind of. I think especially with like the newcomers to college sports, the freshmen and so forth. I know he's in charge of that. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on NIL, the portal. This stuff it's not old. It's not old, but it's not new anymore. This is a pretty common concept these days with the portal, in and outs of the portal, the in and outs of what NIL does for folks in and out of the portal. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on the portal and NIL.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concept of it is good, right? Like it was too big of a business to not be giving these guys something. So that's ground level concept, fantastic. It's so hard to govern what's actually happening, and like we don't even know what's actually being given, what's being promised, on the back end of all that stuff. You try to keep up with it, you ask so and so, but it's all kind of hearsay through back channels a lot of the time. But I think it's headed in a direction of more of like a contract structure, the way that pro sports is, right? Like I think that soon you're going to have guys signing like 2-year deals for this amount of money, pen to paper, so that you're not getting, you see guys that are, I can't think of one of their names off the top of my head, but I mean, I've seen a couple of different guys that are suing their previous coaches because they never got their NIL installments they were promised, right? Like that's the age that we're
I've been reading that, and it's really scary. And I think about it from the football arena when you think about Matt Sluka from UNLV, who's of course head coach, was a former Razorback defensive coordinator, Barry Odom, and so. It's really, really interesting. And the conversations that I've had with some folks back on the Hill and just in general talking about NIL, obviously I felt like it was at first I felt like it was an overstatement of what was to come and how Congress was getting involved. But it's almost necessary. And as much as I'm a big proponent of NIL. I'm a big proponent of the portal. I really, really do appreciate, as I played college ball at Washita Baptist, Division II, and I know the throes and the heartache and frustration of getting through the red tape and man, I would have loved to have had a portal when I was playing. But it's a lot to it, you know, and it's good to have that things are becoming more simple. But it is getting a bit ridiculous with, you know, if you remember the Braylon Allen situation, is that his name, Braylon Allen, the running back from Arkansas that was in and out of the portal and in and out, and
right.
It all came out that it was, you know,
Russell.
Russell Allen's the running back from the Jets.
Yes, I couldn't think of it either. Yeah, Braylon Russell.
But yeah, Braylon Russell. And look, man, I'm happy to have him back. I think he's a native, right? He's from Little Rock or something like that.
Ryan, I think. Yeah,
Ryan,
somewhere around here.
So, you know, it's good that we are able to keep that kind of talent in house or in the state, but it was a bit ridiculous. And I was watching the whole thing on Twitter as he announced that he's leaving, and then he decided he would stay, and then he announced that he was leaving again, and it's just it all came out that there were dollar amounts that were being that, you know, one school had for him as opposed to what Arkansas was able to provide for him, and you know, and then just even once you get past the transportal stuff, the what you're allowed to do, you can't the school can't promise it, but you know, just there's a lot of things in place, you know, NIL wise that you know, we thought it was bad when it was just Reggie Bush having $2,500 of walking around money, but these days it's getting even worse, right? And now that it's legal,
it's just so hard to govern. Like exactly what you're saying. There's so many layers and aspects to it that, you know, I think they realized when it started that it was going to be a lot, but I don't think anyone realized that it was going to hit this much this fast to where now it's out of control, and you got to figure out a way to get a leash on it a little bit.
Yeah, as best you can. And I mean, there'll always be, you know, I think honestly, because we haven't heard lately about the, you know, the illegal. There's a lot less, you know, inappropriate texting. There's a lot less, you know, obviously there's. There's a lot less of that going on, and that was the problem that I think we were having, and that NIL has solved that for sure. And like you said, man, I'll never forget the story. You know, and this was probably 15 years ago now. So there's, you know, with the bowl games in football is the one I think of the most when I think about NIL. And the people who ran the Fiesta Bowl, and you can look it up. The people who ran the Fiesta Bowl. I guess they misaccounted for like $10 million. Like they brought in $10 million that they weren't prepared to have, or they didn't have set to go anywhere in particular. And so essentially what happened was the guy that was in charge of the company pocketed that $10 million. And so there were naturally like some SEC rulings, the securities governing body that you know runs finances, not the conference, but they had some questions for him. But essentially, what happened, you know, to paraphrase all of this, is that he pocketed the money because they didn't know what to do with it, and this man still works for that company that runs the Fiesta Bowl. Like that's the key to it. Is that, and if you're making an extra $10 million that you don't know what to do with, and you put that money in your pocket because you don't know, it's not required to go anywhere. Like when I think about story, and there's probably 10 more stories like that, you know, because there's 50 bowl games now. And so, you know, who knows how much money they're making off of these bowl games. Yeah, the kids need to be a part. Like I can remember many a student who, teammate of mine, and, you know, I playing at Washita, if you're familiar with Arkadelphia, there's literally our rivals right across the street from us. And so, you know, I knew a lot of those guys as well. And, you know, a lot of them struggled. You know, I used to get my haircut from the running back of at Henderson State because, you know, he needed, and he would cut it for like, I think $10 or $15, something like that. It was a great cut too. It was terrific guy, man. But, you know, he was just trying to make ends meet because you got so little, you know, money. And meanwhile, you know, the coaches are trying to pay for things. You know, you think about Deion Sanders and the amount of money he spent at Jackson State. I mean, even now, as I understand it, Colorado is working diligently they paid him for the next year coming up, but it's been proven they don't have the funds. You know, so if you know who's making this money inside of NCAA, and where it's going, and it's good that it's going to the players as much as it's going to the school and everyone else. But
yeah, they needed something. You can't have that kind of business where the guys making the money are not making the money, right? Like they're not getting the end result of it. Yeah, you talk about the NCAA though. I wouldn't, it's a big step. Maybe it's a conspiracy theory thing you see on Twitter, but I see people talking about with all the conference realignment and stuff. Yeah, they're taking steps towards to where the NCAA may not even be relevant. You know what I mean? If you get 4 major super conferences, you don't really need a governing body like the NCAA. So that's way down the road, but you could see something like that. Talking about where the money's going, if it's not going to the NCAA, like if these conferences are in full control of that money,
then you're going to see world. Yeah, and look, you think about the SEC. For a better portion of my life, the SEC has always been the football conference, and then they were actually pretty solid in baseball most years, but a football conference. And then to see the level of talent and how it's gone up in basketball in recent years is really, really impressive. And that's got to do with the fact that when you add great schools like Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri's always been really good in basketball and solid in football and baseball. Just the steady growth of this conference is definitely the reason why it's going to be the blueprint for other conferences. And the poor Pac-12 and their 2 teams are struggling to stay afloat. And I guess you just kind of got to stick with what but that's the blueprint. That's the way it's going to work. And I think we're definitely going to get to that point, like you said, about the 4 super conferences. Look, man, we're at 48 minutes. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I did want to ask you this before we go. Looking at, and I met you on Twitter, and certainly happy that I did, man. I can't say thank you enough. For those of you who are just joining us watching, Brandon Baker of the 30 Minutes of Hell podcast, and definitely a great follow. So I definitely want you to shout that out here in a bit. But talk about, because we've been seeing this a lot, and I've been watching you go back and forth with these, and holding your own, I should say, with these Kentucky Wildcat fans, man. They are borderline Cowboy fans here. They're getting out of hand. But to talk a little bit about some of the trolls you've encountered here in the last few months on Twitter.
It was such a long relationship that they had with John Calipari that it's impossible not to go quietly into the night, right? Like they're gonna be around. I will say that this summer, before the season even started, I actually probably had a higher opinion of Kentucky than a lot of Arkansas fans did. I didn't hate what Mark Pope put together over there. As much as it pains me to admit it, I did not think they were going to be as good as they are right now. Like, I'm not saying I called that by any means. Nobody. I like a lot of the pieces they put together on that team. They're doing pretty good things over there. But yeah, I mean, I think if Muss would have been here longer, we would probably be in a similar state, right? Like he was only, like his time at Arkansas feels like a blink in just like 4 years that he was here. And then he goes to another school, and the difference also being that he moved across the country, right? Like he didn't go to the rival school. Because I mean, back in the 90s, like even some of the 2000s when Arkansas had solid teams, that's tier 1 and tier 2 in the SEC. Arkansas, Kentucky, that's a big rivalry. It's hard. I mean, you're going to talk about it, right? And then obviously we've got plenty of them on Arkansas side of Twitter too. You've got these guys that are just out there getting clicks on whatever they want to say, but
I might be one of those people, Brandon. I may or may not be one of those people. Let's just
we all are sometimes. No, man, but it sucks that we can't back it up as well right now because the Hogs have underperformed a lot. Right? Like they haven't won what they're supposed to win, and Kentucky's doing really good. So it hurts a little bit, but I think that this will be the worst team that Calipari ever puts on the court at Arkansas, and I'm curious to see how Mark Pope can keep it going. Because his team right now, it's made of like a lot of fifth-year seniors and a lot of these older guys. Yeah, when he starts bringing in these younger freshmen and these guys that aren't playing in his system, this team, I feel like they overachieved a little. We'll see how Kentucky looks in a few years.
Not a little. They've overachieved a lot.
That's fair.
So one thing, and I guess this is new. I haven't been, like I said, I've been to a Razorback game, home game in 5 years or maybe longer. But one of the things I thought that was really interesting. Have you been to any games this year?
I have not made it to Fayetteville yet this year. I had tickets last week, and I had a family emergency come up. You know, we're all good now, but I wasn't able to make it. I've got tickets to the Texas game coming up. That'll be my first game this year.
That's gonna be awesome. So you know, and I don't know if this is new or not. Shout out my man Pinto. Pinto was the one that my source on Arkansas lore. Now that I'm gone, he was the one who kind of explained this to me. Apparently, the student section picks a player off the opposing team, and they boo them.
Yeah,
doesn't matter what this guy. And so the fun part was the team they picked, or the player they picked from LSU was actually, if you're familiar with 90s hip hop rap, is Silk the Shocker, Master P's brother. So his Master P's nephew was I think Precious Miller or something like that, Victorious Miller. Whatever. Yeah. They just started every time he touched the ball, they would just boo him uncontrollably. And I'm childish and immature, and I loved every bit of it. I loved every bit of it, Brandon. Man,
I need to go back and look, because last year, about halfway through the season, I did a little research on. I looked to see if that player that they were booing, if he actually played worse than his team. So I haven't looked at it this year, but last year I did a research study on that.
Okay.
And they did a little bit worse. It worked a little bit.
Listen, I just love the aesthetics of it. Like they're like the student section's making all this racket, and like literally in the middle of everything they're doing, you know, they're keeping up racket, and then as soon as Miller would get the ball, hands touch the ball, boo. And like, I don't know. I got involved. I wasn't sure what was going on, or if like maybe he had committed and backed out, or I'm not sure. So I had to figure it out. And so, you know, I reached out to there's a group of girls. Have you encountered these? Because Arkansas Twitter is outstanding and hilarious. Yeah. It's very like super petty, and like again, you know, understanding the objective of it, objectively looking at it from the inside of it, that we just discussed for 10 minutes, the one of maybe 10 heartbreaking moments, and everybody got 10 of their own, you know. So this fan base deserves to be a little petty about it. But you know, that Arkansas Twitter is really something. But are you familiar with the Hogettes, the ladies that go to? Yeah, love them.
I know who they are.
So I'm friends with Susan, and I saw her at the game, and I was like, "Yo, what are they booing these people for?" She's like, "I don't know." So then I hit Pinto, and Pinto was like, "Oh, they just do it. They just pick a person every game, and I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's a good thing that they started.
I'm all for it, man. Whatever else we got to do, if it'll help us win a ring, I'm game, dude.
The crowd's part of it, man. Let them do it. That's a sixth man.
Beautiful. Well, look, man, I can't thank you enough for your time, dude. You know, look, we've got a bond, we've got a friendship. Where's my? Oh, I got a Steeler or I've got a Clippers scarf and a few other things. But look, man, go Clippers. And if there's anything I can do, I'll tell you this 100 more times, but I'll say it on air for the world to see, man. But if there's anything I can do, you can reach out to me. You've got a friend in me, man, for real.
I appreciate you, man.
Really appreciate your time. Looking forward to more of your work going forward, and looking forward to having you back on, hopefully after some sort of conference championship tournament, maybe tournament championship, hopefully, man. Fingers crossed, man. We're a good team, and you know, and like you said, they're in a good place. So I think it'd be great. But we'll lock in a date, you know, during the tournament or after the tournament to kind of talk through it some more. But you know, whatever I can do, again, I appreciate it. For those of you watching at home, can't say thank you enough for checking us out. This is Brandon Baker of the 30 Minutes of Hell podcast. Anything you want to say to anybody before you go?
Man, you've been great. I really appreciate you having me on. I always enjoy talking, especially Arkansas hoops, Arkansas sports, whatever it is, with whoever will give me the opportunity to. So I appreciate you, man.
Whenever you need it, let me know. We can talk. We can do this all day, every day. I'm with it.
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again. And For everyone that's checking us out, again, as I always say, I appreciate you. It means so much to check us out. As I always say, as we finish, man, tough times don't last. Tough people do. Thank you for watching the Fanatic Sports Podcast.